election for the chairperson of the African Union Commission. Former Kenya Prime Minister Raila Odinga is a key contender in this race, and all eyes are on him as he prepares for what could be a historic victory. This coming Saturday, Odinga will get to know whether he will take the helm of the African Union Commission or not. This election not only holds significance for Raila Odinga, but also for the future of the African Union and its role in addressing the challenges facing Africa. Destiny Mbatha reports.
Was a vote that was done to select 6 commissioners from various African nations. South Africa, Nigeria, and Eswatini were among the countries that were able to secure commissioner positions, each taking 3 of the commissioner slots. AU candidate Raila Odinga arrived in Addis Ababa on Wednesday evening, where he joined the Kenyan delegation led by Foreign and Diaspora Affairs Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, who was leading the AU campaigns. On the same day, Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Korir Song'ei led an important strategy meeting with Raila campaigning team to finalize the preparations of the upcoming elections. Raila completed his campaign activities yesterday in Bujumbura, where he met with the president of Burundi before heading to Addis Ababa. He cancelled his visit to Somalia as time is indeed slipping away from him as the AU election nears. A large delegation of politicians, including MPs, governors, and senior governmental officials, will arrive in Addis Ababa today and tomorrow, which is on Friday, in order to support Raila's campaigns.
I'm also aware that other members of the National Assembly will be traveling to Addis Ababa as part of the leadership and citizens of the country in solidarity and support of the candidature of the Honorable Raila Odinga. Indeed, in line with the provisions of standing orders, I have received around 40 notifications from members intending to attend the activity. For clarity, these members will be traveling in their private capacities as citizens and leaders, and therefore will be self-sponsored.
Concerns emerged over allegation that some governmental officials are traveling at taxpayers' expense. However, Mudavadi dismissed these claims.
Many Kenyans have come out of their own volition. I know some people were asking me about what is the size of the Kenyan delegation. But I want to say that the level of anxiety and patriotism is very high. The Kenyan delegation is the standard delegation, which is normally led by the president during a summit like this. But there are so many Kenyans who, out of their own pocket and their own commitment, have come into Addis Ababa.
All right, we head back to our top story. Former Kiambu County Governor Ferdinand Waititu has been sentenced to 12 years in prison or an alternative fine of 53.5 million shillings after being found guilty of several corruption-related charges. The sentence was handed down Thursday by Milimani Anti-Corruption Chief Magistrate Thomas Nzioka, who found that Waititu had committed various offenses during his tenure as governor. Waititu was charged alongside 3 others, including his wife, Susan Wangari. Now, Nzioka ruled that the sentences for the accused would run concurrently. And as Tabitha Wanjiru now reports, the court has barred Waititu, his wife, and his co-accused from holding any public office for the next 10 years.
On the 13th of February 2025, before the Milimani Anti-Corruption Chief Magistrate Thomas Nzioki, former Governor Ferdinand Waititu, who was found guilty of having committed various crimes during his reign as the governor for Kiambu County, was sentenced to 12 years imprisonment or pay a fine of 53.5 million Kenyan shillings. Among the crimes he was accused of include conflict of interest, award of tenders without approval of the County Assembly on February 2018, and forgery of documents, among others. Magistrate Thomas Nzioki also directed that Waititu's wife, Susan Wangari, should pay a fine of 500,000 Kenyan shillings or serve a 1-year imprisonment. However, the magistrate directed that the terms will run concurrently. The magistrate further found that the conduct of Waititu could not be forgiven since his acts undermined the tenets of good governance.
a fine of 500 shillings in default. You serve 12 years. You serve 12 months imprisonment. For the second accused person, Susan Wangarindu, I'll sentence you to a fine of 500 in default, 1 year imprisonment. And I think that's the only sentence that you'll carry. So you can sit down. You can sit down, Governor, if you have finished with your sentences. I don't think you're affected by the rest. Okay. Yes. 500,000, and that's the only sentence for Susan. Yes, that's the only sentence that she'll carry.
His co-accused Luka Mwangi Wahinya, former chief officer for roads, transport, public works and utilities, was among the accused and was ordered to serve 2 years imprisonment or pay a fine of 1 million Kenyan shillings and a mandatory fine of 20 million Kenyan shillings in default to serve 5 years imprisonment. Furthermore, the Testimony Enterprises Limited directors Charles Chege Mbuthia and Beth Wangeshi were sentenced a 4 years imprisonment or pay a fine of 2 million Kenyan shillings with a mandatory fine of 294 million Kenyan shillings and 3 years imprisonment or pay a fine of 1.4 million Kenyan shillings respectively.
Section 48(1), the first limb of ASECA, you shall pay a fine of 1 million in default 2 years imprisonment. Under section 48(1), B, as read with section 48(2).
The court has also barred Waitito, his wife and the co-accused from serving in any public office for 10 years. Additionally, he directed that the co-accused be given a 14-day window to appeal both the ruling and the judgment. Following the ruling on Wednesday, Waitito together with the convicted persons had pleaded for a non-custodial sentence, arguing that they had suffered immensely since their arraignment and deserved a second chance. Moments after the sentencing, Waitito's lawyer revealed the former governor was unwell as he requested the court to allow him to seek medical treatment. Tabitha Wanjiro reporting for EBN TV, Nairobi.
President William Ruto arrived in Addis Ababa to attend the 38th ordinary session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. Upon arrival at Bole International Airport, President Ruto was received by Ethiopia's Minister of Trade and Regional Integration, Kasahun Goff. The visit comes at a crucial time, with AU counting hours to the kick-off of the Commission's elections in which Raila Odinga is a candidate. President William Ruto will be among the heads of states and governments who will be voting for the next chairperson. A section of members of parliament from the Western Kenya Parliamentary Caucus has come to the defense of the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, condemning what they termed as a sustained and unjustified attack on his leadership. Addressing the press at Parliament buildings on Thursday, the lawmakers accused the unnamed individuals of orchestrating a smear campaign against Speaker Wetangula, particularly over his ruling that declared the Kenya Kwanza Alliance as the majority party in the National Assembly. Led by Teso South Member of Parliament Mary Emase, the legislators dismissed claims of bias and discrimination, asserting that the Speaker acted strictly within the confines of the Constitution and parliamentary standing orders.
We note that before the commencement of this fourth session of the 13th Parliament, sections of the mainstream media have published very misleading headlines and reports in anticipation of the Speaker's guidance relating to the majority and minority party of the National Assembly. In a most unfair manner, the Speaker has been prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced in the court of public opinion by sections of the press. Even after issuing guidance to the House, the vilification has continued unabated. In some sections of the media, it's been further amplified to include attacks against the professional standing and reputation of the Speaker as a senior lawyer and jurist.
The week that we were supposed to be thinking of great things as a country of AUC. And we have ended up now making it a matter of the Speaker, which I doubt it is a matter of the Speaker. And it is very unfortunate that after all what we spoke yesterday, it ended up to be a matter of Speaker. I think as Parliament, we have more better issues to deal with for the country. At midterm, the things we are doing, I think it's very unfortunate. And so the most important thing, first of all, coming from the community of Western, there is no way Speaker is going, nowhere. Nowhere. That one we have to say.
The Council of Governors has renewed its battle with the national government over the ongoing construction of affordable housing units in numerous markets. The council wants the control of budget to compel the national government to hand over these multi-billion shillings projects to counties, arguing that these functions have already been devolved. This came as the council also called for the establishment of a pension and medical scheme for governors, noting that unlike other senior state officials, they currently lack such benefits.
Objectives of the meeting were to appraise chairs of the COG committees of the actionable policy and legal issues in devolved sectors, collectively reaffirm renewed commitment to devolution, and discuss urgent and long-term solutions that will improve resourcing for county governments and strengthen intergovernmental relations. To increase synergy with the COG committees and in order to zealously defend devolution, the Excellency Governors resolved as following. Number one, to enhance a consultative and cooperative relationship with the National Assembly and the Senate with a view to enhancing dialogue on legislative agenda of county interest. Number two, engage with the Senate on the fourth basis of revenue sharing formula to ensure that all counties are held harmless. Number three, undertake a comprehensive assessment of all bills before Parliament to establish the financial implications of the tabled legislation to counties. Number four, ensure the transfer of funds for recently unbundled functions, that is White Gazette notice dated 16th December 2024.
Nurses enrolled in the Universal Health Coverage UHC program across 5 counties in Mount Kenya region have downed their tools, demanding permanent and pensionable employment from the national government. The striking nurses hailing from Murang'a, Kirinyaga, Embu, Tharaka Nithi and Meru counties accused the government of ignoring their demands for over 5 years. On Tuesday, the health workers marched along the busy Embu-Nairobi highway to the Department of Health Service offices, seeking an audience with the County Executive Committee member for health. Led by UHC Representative Simon Washira, the nurses decried what they termed as salary discrimination, claiming they earn only a quarter of what their counterparts in pensionable terms receive, despite working the same hours and performing identical duties.
We are here today to demonstrate because of our punitive pay, which we have undergone for the last 5 years. We have been on contract since 2020 when we were employed during the COVID-19. We have been tortured severely psychologically. We do not have any peace at work. We are being discriminated from our colleagues who are on permanent and pensionable terms, whereby we are performing the same services.
Kwamba hawa wauguzi walikuwa wameajiriwa katika kandarasi ya miaka 3 ambapo walikuwa wamepewa tumekubaliana na serikali kwamba baada ya miaka 3 wataweza kupewa kandarasi ya kudumu ama permanent and pensionable, lakini ilipofika mwaka wa 2023 badala ya serikali kuweza kubadilisha ile kandarasi kukuwa ya kudumu, waliweza kuongezea kandarasi ingine ambayo ni kinyume na sheria na ni kinyume cha makubaliano yale yalikuwa hapo mbeleni.
Tumesanyana hapa kaunti 4 ambazo zina wauguzi ambao wako kwa ile tunaita ile program inaitwa Universal Healthcare, na hawa wauguzi ni wenye serikali ilitumia kupambana na COVID, na walipambana na COVID mpaka wakazuia wananchi wetu kufariki kwa wingi. Sasa the same spirit ile ndio tunauliza kwamba serikali kuu, kwa sababu ilisaidika na wananchi wakasaidika kutumia huduma ya hawa, waendelee hivyo hivyo ili wapee hawa watu terms mzuri ambazo ni za permanent and pensionable, ili nao pia wa appreciate hao kwa sababu walifanya kazi yao na wanaendelea kuhudumu, wanaendelea na kupeana services kama wenzetu wenye wako kwa PNP.
The Kenya Association of Private Universities is appealing to the government to settle the 50 billion shillings accrued since 2015 for government-sponsored students placed in 34 private universities. The government, through the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service, started placing students in private universities in 2015 to expand access to higher education. Delayed disbursements of money to cater for the government-sponsored students, most of whom have since graduated, have made the universities sink into financial holes, impacting infrastructural development and academics in equal measure. The union members met in Mombasa to discuss pertinent issues, and they lauded collaborations with the government in developing human capital. However, in the course of the collaborations, the chairman and the vice chancellor of the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, Professor Reverend Stephen Ngari, said the government has not met its financial obligation and owes the private universities 50 billion shillings on unpaid disbursement.
In the course of these collaborations, the government has not met its financial obligations and owes the private universities about Kenya shillings 50 billion on unpaid disbursement for students, most of whom have graduated.
The challenges that we have experienced in the absence of the 50 billion shillings that the government of Kenya owes us are immense. One thing that we need to say is that private universities have been providing free education to the students that were placed in the universities by the Kenya government. And this I say because the 50 billion is what was supposed to go towards facilitating the students who were placed by the government. But since the government has not been remitting that money, definitely we have been supporting the students, and most of those students have actually graduated with their degrees and gone home, and yet the government has not paid us. And therefore, some of the challenges are that the other students that pay us and the other resources that we get from other alternative income generating activities or sources, that is what we now use to support the whole group of students that we have, including the ones who have paid their tuition fees and the ones whom the government has not remitted their tuition fees to private universities.
All right, at that point, allow us to take a quick break. We'll be back shortly with more news making headlines. Stay with us.
Things will work. Lakini tulipohusisha wanaume, mabadiliko yakasonga kwa haraka wakati tunahusisha wanaume na akina mama kwa kuzungumzia masuala hata ya uchumi. Kwa sababu sasa wanaume wanaruhusu pia akina mama wahusike kwa chama, wanaelewa umuhimu wa akina mama wakipata elimu, wakipata nafasi ya uongozi, na tuliona hata vijiji vikitangazwa kuwa wazee wanasimama na kusema hatufanyi FGM hapa tena. Tumeona wanaume wakileta watoto clinic kwa chanjo. Tumeona wanaume wakihusika kwa maamuzi ya kupanga uzazi.
With a few days left to the celebration in remembrance of National Liberation Hero Dedan Kimathi, various groups that defend the rights of freedom fighters have continued their preparation for the ceremony. A rallying call has been made to the government to compensate the freedom fighters, as most of them are living in suffering. At the same time, a request has been given to the government to ensure the remains of Dedan Kimathi are found and buried in an honorable way.
Preparation is so high, and we are expecting even the president to come. Lakini more so, it is also very sad affair that even some family members of Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi cannot even ferry themselves to come because they have been neglected by the government. It is actually not a good face. And what I can put across is this, especially those people who are against the compensation of Mau Mau. If you come and see that family, that they can't even drive themselves to Nyeri or other places, and their father's name is all over the world, the government should even think twice about this.
And more importantly, we would like now to embrace the idea of excavating, if that's the word, the bones of the remains of Dedan Kimathi in Kamiti Maximum Prison. The area we bury these gentlemen decently, better for us, because this will be the 67th year after the hanging of Dedan Kimathi. And make sure that we bury these gentlemen we call Dedan Kimathi decently. That is our call.
Kwa hivyo tunaongea haya maneno yote, kama ni Kahigaine tutaenda Kahigaine, kama ni upande wa Kabiroine tutaenda. Jinsi yote watu tunaalika, kila mtu, hatutapagui Kahiga wala tupagui nani, tunaalika wote, na tutakuwa na ng'ombe 24 na mbuzi 50.
Radio journalists from across the world celebrated World Radio Day in 2025 under the theme Radio and Climate Change, with the intent to assist radio stations and their journalistic coverage of this critical problem. Well, our sister radio station, Radio Mshindi, led at the forefront in celebrating this all-important event, as radio remains a credible source of information that plays a very significant role in tackling global issues.
Majina naitwa Denvis Mwazige, wengi wananifahamu hapa ndani ya Radio Mshindi 104.0 kama kaka DM. Mimi huwa ni mwendeshaji wa kipindi cha Pambazuka na Radio Mshindi, na kwa wakati mwingine pia wanasoma taarifa za habari hapa ndani ya Radio Mshindi. Kwa hivyo siku ya leo ambapo tunaadhimisha siku ya redio ulimwenguni, kwangu ni furaha kubwa kwa sababu ya ule mchango ambao huwa tunatoa sisi kama waandishi wa habari, kwani mbali na kufahamisha, kuelimisha na kutoa burudani, pia kwa wakati mwingi unapata kwamba kwa kuendana, kwa mfano kama na hii kauli mbiu ya mwaka huu katika kuadhimisha siku ya redio ulimwenguni, inayohusiana sana sana na mabadiliko ya tabia nchi, sana sana utapata kwamba sisi kama waandishi wa habari huwa tuko na mchango mkubwa sana katika kuelimisha umma na kupata kuwafahamisha kuhusiana na matangazo kuhusu mabadiliko ya tabia nchi.
Leo ni siku ya redio duniani kote, na tunashukuru sana kwa umbali ambao tumefika kutoka hapa Radio Mshindi 104.0. Mimi naitwa The Captain Kimeta, na niko hapa ni kwa ajili ya mpango mzima wa Mshindi Drive kuanzia mwendo wa saa 10 jioni hadi saa 1 usiku kamili. Kazi yetu kama kawaida ni kumake sure kwamba tunaburudisha, tunaelimisha, na hayo yote ni kwa ajili ya kumake sure kwamba wewe kama msikilizaji wetu unakuwa kwenye hali ambayo iko salama. Na kutoka hapa Radio Mshindi tunataka kuwatakia watangazaji wote duniani kote wakuwe na siku njema, siku ambayo ni ya baraka, na pia siku ambayo tutazidi kuchangia ni kwa ajili ya kumake sure kwamba dunia inafurahia na iweze kucheka.